There are three things that are absolutely critical for Boston College football to achieve during fall camp in order to have a successful 2025 season.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network, and I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you want analysis, news, and opinion on your Boston College Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On Boston College is available 5 days a week on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. I want to thank you for making Locked On Boston College your first listen every day, because we are part of the Locked On podcast, your team every day. Now, camp opens in 2 days, and I got three storylines that we need to watch for. The story of the summer: what is going to be the biggest storyline going around BC football? It's time to trust the offensive line. I'll explain why. And the defense, they need to find the identity. These three things are what we're going to talk about on today's show. Now, let's kick it off. The defense. Tim Lewis, in year 2 at Boston College, has an enormous task in front of him, but one that he can address and be successful at, which is replacing Donovan Ezeiruaku, the Hendricks Award-winning defensive edge rusher who is now a second-round draft pick of the Dallas Cowboys. How does he do that? That is a monumental ask for a defensive coordinator. But what I love about Tim Lewis and what I think we're going to see at camp, which opens on Wednesday, is that Lewis is good at addressing the defense and adjusting it to what the strengths of that unit are going to be. There's lots of questions about this defense, no doubt about it. There's no way to say that you are going to replace a guy that had 16 and a half sacks. And it's going to be tough to replace Cam Horsley, who was one of your best defensive tackles in recent memory. He's gone too. But I think what Lewis is going to do is bring in a very variable defense that's going to show different things and do different things with the strengths that they have. And I think the strengths start in the back end. When we look at camp this year, one of the biggest names that I'm going to be watching for is Amari Jackson, cornerback from Georgia, who missed the second half of last year after a knee injury against Virginia took him out for the rest of the year. He is their best defensive back when healthy. And I cannot wait to see if he's going to be 100%. Bill O'Brien says he's going to be. Bill O'Brien mentioned him as one of the guys that could be integral to replace Ezeiruaku. So Amari Jackson at camp could be one of those guys we're going to be watching for to see, is he able to lock down a Lewis Bond or a Reed Harris? Is he a guy that is, 100% and is going to be able to match up? You're playing Clemson, you're playing Notre Dame. They've got great wide receivers. Louisville always has good wide receivers. You need good defensive backs. You have that with Amari Jackson. So I look at that secondary. I look at guys like KP Price, Omar Thornton, and Carter Davis. And that is where you build your strength. You can do different things that are going to get pressure on the quarterback other than just blitzing the quarterback with your edge rushers. Good, solid back end work can always help the front end get that pressure that you are going to need. Last year, Boston College was 93rd against the pass. They need to be better. Now that they have their group together, you have KP Price. I argue will be one of the best safeties in the ACC back there, along with Carter Davis, who is getting to be a very good safety. And then you don't know what you have with Omar Thornton and where you can put him. Maybe he's the slot guy. Maybe he, comes in certain packages. But you have that depth there in that secondary. And at camp, what they're able to do against what should be a pretty good Boston College passing offense should dictate how they look moving forward. Are they making plays or are they getting beat? Last year against BC's wide receivers at camp, they were good. One of the things that I noted last year at camp was that the wide receivers had real trouble separating against the secondary. And while some may say it was just the wide receivers, and if you want to say that, go for it. I put that more in the secondary is pretty good. That's what I think. That's more what was the issue was. So looking ahead, looking at what you have, that's one piece. Then you bring in the linebackers, and this is the other piece of camp that I am dying to watch. Daveon Crouch. This is his big year. Bam Crouch is going to be one of the best linebackers you've had in the last couple of years, in my opinion. I think this is a big year for him because he's a graduate student. He's been around this program for a while. We've seen glimpses of how explosive he can be. At camp, we're going to get to see him be the leader on the defense. That's a big difference than last year when you had Cam Arnold out there, who was fine, but he had his limitations. I think Bam Crouch doesn't have those limitations. I think he is versatile, he's athletic, and he's violent. I love that in a linebacker, a violent linebacker, and that's what they got right there. So I look at Bam as one piece, but that second linebacker spot, because they usually go with two, and then you have the edge rushers kind of working around that. That second linebacker is going to be intriguing. Owen McGowan's back from an injury. I think it was a chest injury that he had last year that kept him out of the spring. No hate at Owen McGowan at all. He's a solid player. He's playing better than I ever expected him to play. But you have Bryce Steele. You have Jason Hewlett. Will one of these guys reach up and grab that starting spot? Will one of those two guys have big plays this camp that make it so that Bill O'Brien's going and Tim Lewis are going, we got to get them on the field? Hewlett's the one I'm watching. He has not played a lot, and that's a fair criticism. But when you're buried on a defense that like Michigan, where there's a lot of talent there, that's not a knock on his talent himself. It's not like saying he's a bust. It's just saying there's a lot of guys out there, and there's only so many snaps. Now you have him. The potential of having Crouch at middle linebacker and having, weak side linebacker being Jason Hewlett, that's exciting because you would have speed. And I'm not talking Jeff Hafley speed here, where you're throwing safeties in at linebacker, which just was a disaster. You're putting in linebackers. Jason Hewlett is 6'2". Bam Crouch is a big boy too. Like, you have the size there. So how this defense finds that identity with that secondary, with that linebacker group, will that mask what could be some issues up front? That defensive line, I'm not sure what's going to be there. Who is going to step up? Quintavious Hutchins is an animal. Like, watching him at practice, that guy is all over the place, all the time. I have no problem with him, but when you look at the second, the defensive line in that other spot, is there going to be a guy that is going to open eyes enough that's going to be able to manage to anchor that defense along with Hutchins? And I'm not sure it's there. We'll have to wait to see. But that is this is all one of those big storylines we're going to be watching for. How all those pieces meld together to form a defense that needs to step up against some really good offenses this year. You're playing Louisville. You're playing Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, Clemson, SMU. You're going to need a big year out of this group. This fall should give you a better feel. And I'll be there to tell you how they're looking. In a moment, let's go to the offensive line. While there's questions on the defensive line, I don't feel like there's many on the offensive line, and I'll explain why in just a moment. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're into singing birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, You just need that extra boost, stay sharp and energized. Look, when I was golfing, my biggest moment golfing, I'm like the guy in Napoleon Dynamite. It was in high school. I tried out for the golf team. I didn't make it. But my best moment was during one of those tryouts. I was falling behind. I had missed a whole bunch of holes, just weren't not close to qualifying. My coach was watching, and I drained a birdie. I hit an approach shot from way out, and it was one of the best moments, one of my best sports moments of my life. And I will never forget that. Now, golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-hour energy shots today. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm AJ Black of Eagle Insider. Thank you all for making Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. If you're looking for a second listen, check out Locked On ACC with Kenton Gibbs and Alex Dono. We're talking everything ACC, and you know you want to check out what they have to say. Now, the second big storyline, the second big takeaway that needs to happen this offseason, this fall camp, is the play of the offensive line. We're now into the final days, and I am thanking you all for sticking with me as we have just been dying for football to get started. But we have been talking extensively about the loss of Ozzie Trapilo, Drew Kendall, and Jack Conley. 3 of your starters are gone. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are really worried that the offensive line is going to regress to the level it was in 2022. And I think that is not the fair assumption going into what you have. Because let me lay this out for you. When you had the 2022 year, the year that Dave DeGuglielmo, who was a complete disaster himself, was your offensive line coach, you had tons of guys thrown in who had 0 playing time. I think, if I remember correctly, they had like 5 starts going into the start of that season. You had Drew Kendall starting at center, who had not played a single snap going into that year. Ozzie Trapilo, I think he played a few snaps the year before. Kevin Klein, 0 snaps. Jack Conley, 0 snaps. And then you had injuries on top of all that. So that is very different than what you're having this year. Yes, you have to replace an NFL second rounder, an NFL, what was Drew Kendall, like 5th round? You're replacing 2 draft picks and Jack Conley, who was a priority free agent for the Patriots. That is not easy to do. But break down who you're replacing it with, and it will make you feel better. 2022 did not have a Jude Bowry on that roster. Jude Bowry is on the way to becoming an NFL draft pick, probably next year. He will be not only fine, but he will be a serviceable to replacement level replacement for Ozzie Trapilo. That is how good he is. As long as he is healthy, which was a problem last year because he was like the mummy. Every part of him was wrapped in bandages by the end of the year. But if he stays healthy, this dude is violent. He's good. He's huge and strong. That's what you want. You did not have that in 2022. Dwayne Alec, who I believe actually was part of 2022 as well, he's getting his chance at either center or guard, depending on what happens with one of the other guys we're going to talk about. He played a ton of snaps as well. You don't need to worry about that. He has been around forever. Same thing with Logan Taylor. Logan Taylor was not, he was an all ACC honorable mention last year, and he was doing that with I think it was his leg. Basically one leg. He's going to get better because he's healthy again. So those 3 right there, huge difference. You're adding in Kevin Klein. Okay. Kevin Klein is a graduate student. Again, he's been around for 5 years. He's played. He of any of the 5 I'm going to talk about probably is the one I'm a little bit concerned with, just because I've not seen enough out of him to really feel confident, but he's played enough. Like, he's not a fresh guy. And then finally, you have a choice here. I was mentioning you could start Dwayne Alec at center, and you'll be fine. You could start Eric Dougherty at center. That's also an option. Or what I think, my personal opinion, without even watching camp, what will my prediction is that Tommy Matheson, the transfer from Princeton, is going to come in, and he is going to take that spot at center, and Dwayne Alec will still start just at guard, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that will happen, because if that happens, you have 5 starters that I believe all of them are graduate students or seniors. That is what you want. Yes, you don't have, you lose some talent, but every single offensive lineman that you have has been on a roster for 5 years, and the staff feels good enough to put them on the field. Like, if any of these guys weren't good, if Kevin Klein wasn't good, you'd see Ryan Mickow out there, or you would see at guard Jaden LaFontaine if any of these guys weren't good enough. But the staff, Matt Applebaum, Will Lawing, Bill O'Brien, they feel this group is good enough that they're going to go with the guys they have. And that's going to have 5 guys. And I bet Eric Dougherty will be that 6th guy that we've seen, a lot in college football. You've got your guys. And, the question then goes to, what about depth? Do you have enough depth at your offensive line? And yeah, fair question to ask. I like what they have. And, I think the next wave that would come up would be a tackle. You'd probably see someone like Jack Funk come in, and I know a lot of BC Eagle Insider fans love their Jack Funk. He'd probably be available. Ryan Mickow, I would think he'd probably be the top, because I think he's the next guy. I think he's the next big guy. You have Dougherty, as I mentioned. And I do think like guys like Jaden LaFontaine and even Pape Sai is out there. Like, that guy's getting ready. And Amir Johnson. We don't talk about Amir Johnson enough. Like, there must be something I'm missing with him, because every publication has him as the best BC transfer. And I just haven't seen it, but he's there as your guard. So, like, you have guys, hopefully, and you're going to watch. And honestly, like, for me, I'm gonna be transparent with you here, Tim. I need to watch more, and I'm really excited to get to camp, because it's not in the Fish Field House. Because if you're watching on YouTube right now, at the Fish Field House, I'm watching usually on the same sidelines as 60 guys that are like 6'6" and up, like, or 6'5" and up. Like, it's just like I'm 5'10", like, I'm not that big. It's hard to see, and when you're watching over a mountain of groups, it's hard to see how offensive linemen are going. When it's fall camp, I get to go outside, and in that outside field, it's a hill, and I can sit on the hill, and that is great, because it's like sitting in like stands and being able to watch what's going on. So that'll give me a better chance to see what this offensive line can do, because they're going to be super important. But what I'm thinking here is, it's a storyline, but I honestly think it shouldn't be, because I think this group's going to be fine. I think this offensive line will be fine. Are they going to be, elite? Probably not. But they will be good. They will be fine. They will be able to run your offense. And I think that will showcase itself at camp when it comes down to it. Now, in our final segment, what's the biggest story of the summer? Dig deep. You know what it is. I'll get into that in just a moment. Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. And to my everydayers out there who have listened to all 5 episodes, thank you so much for making us your first listen every day, and for checking us out on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Now, what's the story of the summer? If you're listening to this podcast, you're an everydayer and you don't know what the answer is, man, you're lying. You're not an everydayer, because you know what the answer to this question is. The biggest story of the summer, the biggest story heading into fall camp, is only one thing. It's the one thing that Bill O'Brien does not want to talk about. It's the one thing that when I get to camp, I'm going to tell you right now, they've already told me that I got my dates. I can't talk about depth chart. So, you can read between the lines of what I report of, whatever, but they're going to keep this as close to the vest as possible for as long as possible. What is it? It's the quarterback the battle. Dylan Lonergan versus Grayson James. When we get to camp, every single throw is going to feel like a big deal because every single throw is another data point whether Grayson James should start or Dylan Lonergan should start. I've said all along, at this point, I think it's 50-50. Really do. Because we don't really know what we don't know. We don't know, what with a lot more pressure put on what Dylan Lonergan can and can't do. He looked great during the spring, but they only had a scrimmage or two and that was it. It's hard to gauge him on that. We do know what Grayson James can do. We saw him. And yes, I think they put together a manageable game plan for him that didn't make him the most explosive quarterback, but made him fine to do what he did and average 34 points a game in November. But when it all comes down to it, if Dylan Lonergan is lighting it up like he did during the spring, will Bill O'Brien make that tough choice? Will he sit his incumbent starter and go with Lonergan? You've got a good offense that, if with a good quarterback, could be explosive. They also have an offense that if you just have a game manager, they're going to be just fine. You're playing a tough schedule. You gotta let the freak flag fly and maybe take a chance here. I've said all along, I'm leaning more towards Grayson James, but I'm more conservative with this kind of stuff. Mitch Wolf of our Eagle Insider, who's joined me on here, he's much more in the Dylan Lonergan camp. But every day at camp, I am going to be sitting there transfixed watching these quarterbacks because I want to get the best details of who's really leading this, because we're going to get to go to the press conferences too. But I'm going to be there on Wednesday and I'm going to talk to Bill O'Brien. If we ask him about it, he is going to deflect and deflect and deflect. And honestly, as I've said every time that we've talked to these coaches, I don't blame them. For something like this, it doesn't behoove them to give anything away. But when we get out on that field, I want to know who makes the better long throws, who makes the fewer mistakes. Because, if Dylan Lonergan's making bigger plays but also turning the ball over more, you go with the guy that isn't turning the ball over more. That's a pretty easy choice for you to make. And so I want to see what Grayson James has in the chamber, what he brings out, this summer, because this next month is long. You guys at home that don't go to these camps, or maybe you haven't played collegiate football, it's a lot for these guys. They go through a lot to get ready for this season. Bill O'Brien said on his podcast that he wants to, or I think he was saying it, at Media Day, he wants to lose 30 pounds. I think he said to Trevor Haas in that, the Day in the Life of Bill O'Brien thing. He wants to lose 30 pounds in a month, which to me was crazy. But then thinking about it, watch him out there. They are just constantly working. Players, staff, everybody. It's a big month for this school. And so we'll be there. I'm going to be there. Mike Sidley, who we've had on the show, are going to be there. We're going to have all sorts of coverage, and we'll have it up at Eagle Insider. And if you have not subscribed to my premium service on there, that gives you the details. I'm going to have notebooks after every practice. It's 50% off right now. Come support our work. It's the easiest way to do it, and you're going to get awesome BC coverage between me, Mitch Wolf, Mike Sidley. We've got Anthony Smith on hockey. We've got basketball. We've got lacrosse. Get in on it right now. We got baseball coverage with Skip McCarty. Check it out. It's, a cup of coffee for the month, price of a cup of coffee for a month. I think you'll enjoy it. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky. I'm on TikTok. Check all of my networks out. Follow me on all of them. It does help people find us easier. And thank you all who have made us your first listen every single day. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and give us 5 stars on podcast networks if that's where you're listening, because it does help the algorithm. We'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.